Hi guys, it's Randy with Direct Action Combat Performance. I'm happy to get this the first session, the first Q&A segment kicked off for 2023. Sam with Adaptive State Performance. She's definitely going to join us in future Q&As. She's on the road right now, and I wanted to get this one off the ground and get us started. So got a few questions over the last couple of months from a variety of viewers. And I'm going to address a few of them today. So we're going to address 5 questions today, and then hopefully next week or the week after, we'll address some more questions, okay? So hope you all had a good holiday, and I hope you're ready to crush the 2023 year, being as productive and as active as you possibly can. You know, it's not for a lack of interest, for sure. Enjoy answering these questions, and I like when people reach out with a variety of questions that I may be able to help them out with. The fall and into November and December was a really active time for direct action. I was on the road a lot, providing a variety of different training exercises for military and law enforcement. So I'm stoked to be doing what I'm doing. I love this, but I also enjoy the interactions with viewers. So please keep the questions coming. If there's anything I can help you out with, or anything that Sam may be able to help you out with, please, we'll address those questions. So keep them going. First question. Josh from Kingston, Ontario, he's reached out and he asked me, is preparation for JTF2 selection to be successful and to be as prepared as possible, should the focus be more on anaerobic or aerobic? Great question. And I believe for JTF2 selection in the current state that I know it, keep in mind I've been I've been out of uniform for almost 3 years now, so based on what I know of selection and the preparation that's required for selection, there ought to be a heavier focus on anaerobic versus aerobic. Not saying that aerobic is not going to be tapped into. That type of energy system will definitely be tapped into when, for an example, you're conducting a long duration underload. Slow grind underload, that's more aerobic, or a steady state type cardio endeavor, that would be more aerobic. The majority of JTF2 selection puts your anaerobic energy system under a lot of strain. So for those that may not be aware, you're still dabbling with your training regime and trying to dial it in, what I would say is to focus heavily on high volumes of body weight exercises. So, push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, be able to run really well, be able to, do a lot of squats, in terms of not squats for the sake of doing squats, but what I'm saying is building up your leg strength and being able to work through lactic acid buildup when it does happen. So understand what's happening to the body when you're under a high level of strain, but most importantly, being able to perform well in those ranges, in those zones, when the heart rate is at a high volume. So when you're in the red, so to speak. And then when that activity starts to decline, being able to drop down into the valley to recover quickly, so you can then climb the next mountain, so to speak. All right, so anaerobic is where I would say put the majority of your focus in preparation for JTF2 specific training. For CSOR selection, a little bit more emphasis would be under carriage under load. So being able to move your body, carry your body, move well under load for long durations of time, that would be, I would say, more of the emphasis for CSOR selection, given the information that I have working with some clients right now who are preparing themselves for JTF2 selection, CSOR selection, and C-Gyru selection. Those 3 variations that fall under the umbrella of CANSOF-COM, their mandates are different, their job task and details are different, which means the strain and stress that will be put on the body and the mind during selection are slightly different. So these are good questions. Anaerobic is definitely going to be the focus for JTF2. I would say more aerobic, especially being able to carry loads for long duration of time for CSOR. And then C-Gyru, for example, a little bit shorter of a selection overall, but there is a little bit of, I would say, both anaerobic and aerobic demands with the selection for C-Gyru. So slightly different, but great question, because if you're going to spend some time on training and preparation, you want to be focused on the purposeful training, the direct training that's going to, help you succeed. So high volumes of push-ups, building up that muscle stamina is important for sure. Muscle endurance is important. Hip and shoulder mobility and flexibility is really important. And, being able to move your body, pull your body, push your body weight, for high volumes and high levels of output with the ability to recover. These things are going to help you with the success of the selection that you're trying for. So hopefully that answers your question, and feel free to send me an email or a follow-up question if you're looking for specific programming or certain areas that you really want to focus on so you can be successful. I'd be happy to help you out. All right, next question is from a gentleman in Petawawa, Ontario. And Jake asked me, is jiu-jitsu a good way of preparing for selection? I would say incorporating Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in your day-to-day activity and training regime is a good thing for sure. Jiu-Jitsu is great for a lot of things, not just your overall conditioning, but your combative comfort level when somebody's in your personal space and you're trying to work through, some complex problem sets to avoid, being submitted, choked out, or what have you. It is good for sure. It's good for your overall development. I would recommend some sort of grappling art or striking art. Any type of combat sport is good for your overall development. In preparation for selection, I would say yes, incorporate it. As a sole means of preparation, no. I would say there's certain things that jiu-jitsu will give you that other components of your training will not, in terms of dealing with that level of discomfort or being in situations that are new or make you feel a little bit apprehensive or definitely uneasy. Those are good things, good for your mental psyche, but also good for your physical preparation. So adding jiu-jitsu, sure, 2 or 3 times a week is a good thing. But to rely on jiu-jitsu as your sole means of preparation, I would say you'd be putting yourself at a bit of a disservice. There are a lot of areas of overall strength, relative strength, anaerobic capability that are important that jiu-jitsu will just not provide for you. So adding jiu-jitsu, yep. The caveat that I would say to that is, as you get closer to selection, and if you're still training jiu-jitsu on a regular basis, you get closer to selection, choose your training partners wisely. It's not uncommon to see people that are relatively new to the sport, but who are very physically capable. They're strong, they're athletic, and they don't mean anything by it. They don't mean to put you in a precarious position or hurt you in any way. But in some cases, there is a level of injury that could be sustained if you're rolling and training with folks that are, they outweigh you by 20 or 30 pounds. They're strong, they're physically active. They don't necessarily know exactly what they're doing, or inadvertently, accidentally may put you in a position where it's tough to get out of, or you're not really sure how to get out of, which means there's a higher risk of injury. I'm not saying avoid it. I'm just saying choose your training partners wisely, and just be cautious that some knucklehead isn't going to grab onto your neck and try to send it into another area code, because those guys exist and they're out there. Whether or not they do it on purpose or whether or not they're just surviving to get through that round of randori or free rolling. But I've seen it happen. I've been on the receiving end of that, and I know the effects. So just treat your training partners with respect, and let them know what your goals are and what it is that you're trying to achieve. That way, when you are partnered up with somebody, there's a less risk of injury. But yes, add jiu-jitsu, definitely, not just for everyday life, but preparation for specific selection, whether it's tactical policing, something in the military, something in CANSOFCOM. Absolutely, it's a good thing. This question from Carl out of Regina, Saskatchewan. He's asking me, can I provide any tricks or tips to help reach his goal of a 100-kilometer rucksack march? So he wants to cover a distance of 100 kilometers. That's his goal. He didn't say what kind of load carriage he's carrying. Not that it matters too much, because whether you have 20 pounds on your back or you have 80 pounds on your back, after a few hours, that 20 pounds feels like 80 and that 80 feels like 150. So This is a really good question because tips and tricks, I'm not really sure I can fulfill a tip or a trick, but some advice I would say is build up to that goal progressively, both with the distance and the weight carriage that you have on your back. More importantly, I would say when if you haven't already started, your journey to achieving this goal, um, choose a pack wisely. Choose a pack that fits you properly. Something that you can, evenly disperse the weight between your shoulders and your hips, because this is no joke. You're going to have to build up to this. This is going to have to be a progressive measure in terms of how you tackle these distances. To simply wake up on a random Sunday morning and throw 50 pounds on your back and walk for 100 kilometers, you could do it. Your mind will definitely drive you if you're mentally strong. You can persevere through the physical discomfort, but there's a cost. There's going to be a cost on the body, and those costs could be detrimental for long term longevity and sustainability. So, to avoid those potential injuries that could haunt you for many years in the future, I would say build up to this. Build up to this progressively. Start off with maybe 2 rucksack marches a week, and then over the course of several weeks, build it up to 3 times a week. Or several weeks, build it up to 4, 5, and so on. And then also, I would say increase your the load capacity over time. Start off with a light pack, and then every additional week perhaps you add 5 pounds, or maybe 2 pounds, but incrementally build that up so your body, your joints, your muscles, everything can become conditioned to carrying load. Load carriage is a level of conditioning that sometimes gets overlooked or paid lip service to. It's no different than wanting to achieve a mile-and-a-half run in 7 minutes and 30 seconds, for example. That is achievable, and you can work up to that, but that energy system gets developed over time. Much like load carriage, that type of muscle endurance, that type of muscle stamina, joint stability, recovery, that takes time. So it is definitely a level of conditioning that's unique. Does take some time for the body to adapt. So give the time, the adequate amount of time for not only your ability to work up to a certain weight and distance, but also give your body that time to recover properly. So it's going to rejuvenate and reestablish the muscle fibers and the tendon recovery that's required, so you can continue to push those loads. So tips and tricks. Not sure if I answered that question directly, Carl, but I would say do this progressively, and then first and foremost, find a pack that fits you properly and that sits well on your hips and your shoulders. Something that's got a high quality shoulder strap as well as a waist strap. And then get after it, man. It'd be great to hear your journey about this and see how well things progress for you, because that's a really cool goal. Good for you, and get after it, man. Take your time doing it, and get back to me. Let me know when you achieve that 100 kilometer goal. That's impressive. Question number 4. Question comes from Kale. So Kale from Winnipeg, Manitoba. He's asking me, what do I do for recovery? Recovery means different things to different people. So rejuvenating the body and the mind and preparing ourselves for that next push is important. I can share maybe is more adequate. Share some knowledge on lessons learned the hard way. For a long time, I was really under the thought process that more is better. More training, more hours, more weight, more load, more, and yeah, I mean, it got me to where I wanted to be. It was successful in a sense, and I think I've addressed this question in the past, but there was a cost. So where the lessons that I've learned and the takeaways that I would like to share with other people is train hard and train like a savage, for sure. You'll never hear me ever say there's such thing as overtraining. I don't believe in it, but I do believe 100% that there is such a thing as under recovery, and that's where I failed, and that's where my body took a shit kicking because of it. So rest and recovery and rejuvenation is important for me personally. What I use today on a more consistent basis than I did say 10 years ago is infrared sauna. So I'll sit in. We're fortunate at our home. We have an infrared sauna in our master bedroom, and it's just a small infrared sauna. A two-person can fit in there comfortably. Heats up pretty quick. Gets up to about 65 degrees Celsius, and I'll sit in there for 25 to 35 minutes for maybe 2 or 3 times a week. And then what I'll do is, once the heart rate is elevated and the sweat is pouring pretty good, after my goal of 20 or 25, 30 or 35 minutes, whatever it might be, I'll get out of the sauna and then right into a cold shower, and I'll sustain that cold shower for about 7 minutes. So I'm going from, extreme hot to an extreme cold, two different variations. And in relation to those who have access to a contrast bath, I would say that's another area of recovery that could be utilized to help you out. So these are some things that help me. Infrared sauna 2 or 3 times a week, cold shower right after that for about between 5 and 7 minutes. I usually set a goal for 7 minutes, set a timer on my watch or the phone to go off. And I'm really trying to control my breathing, because we're going from extremely hot sweating to extremely cold, where the elevation of the heart rate is adjusted, but so is the breathing patterns. So being able to control the breathing, being able to stay under the water when it's cold and not so comfortable, is an element of mental and physical connection that helps me recover. So I find the days that I do that, I sleep really well. Those nights are sound sleeps, good solid 6 to 7 hours of uninterrupted sleep. There is definitely a difference between the days that I implement the infrared sauna and then the days that I do not. Some other, I guess, tips, tricks, or notions for recovery. Some people who have really busy, active lifestyles, where maybe they've got a full-time job, maybe their significant other has a full-time job, they also have a couple of kids. Maybe kids are running back and forth between hockey practice and soccer practice or baseball practice or whatever it might be. Sometimes finding that time to give to yourself for recovery can be a bit of a challenge. So nature walks, although it sounds kind of corny or dorky, I don't believe it is at all. Getting out and walking in nature where you have no electronics, you're not listening to music, you're just listening to the nature, the environment. You're listening to the leaves, you're listening to, perhaps sticks break under your feet. You're just alone with your own thoughts, maybe the ability to extract those thoughts and just let it drift into nature. For me, those 15-20 minute nature hikes are very powerful, and they work well just to kind of get away from the white noise, so to speak, and just be in peace with yourself in nature. Whether or not you have your dog with you, you take your dog for a walk while he or she is running through the woods, you're just minding your own business and trotting through the trails. That's another powerful one too. I would recommend for folks that have access to trails, or trails that are not too far away that you feel comfortable walking. By all means, implement something like that as well. For other people, they like to read. Some quiet time with a book that is either something they're really, really interested in, or sometimes a book that maybe was suggested from a friend that you're not even sure if it interests you, but sitting down for that 15, 20, or 30 minutes of alone time, just you and the book, can be an added avenue for effective recovery. So try those things out. For me personally, I like the infrared sauna. I like the cold shower. Works well for me, and that's what I utilize. And then the last question we'll address for today, and then like I said, next week we'll reconvene. Books and resources. So, there's a lot of books that people have recommended to me. Some are in the queue. Some I have ongoing. So right now I probably have 4 books that are ongoing, and depending on my mood and how much time I have, it'll really depend on what book I open up for that 15-20 minute segment. But there are a lot of good books out there, and I really appreciate when people give me recommendations too. And I'll be honest with you, I have a hard time reading anything that's fictional. If it doesn't have some realism to it, or if it's not a true story, or something to do with self-improvement, I typically don't open it up, to be completely honest. So the books that I'll recommend here were recommended to me, and I gained a lot from them. So I appreciate those authors putting them together, and I appreciate friends and colleagues or just viewers who recommended books to me in the past. So thanks for that. So there's one called Present Moment Focus, and that's a book by Brian Cain. Present Moment Focus is actually he has a series of books, but this one in particular I've revisited on a couple of occasions, and he really talks about in a fun way too. I like the way the books are not hard to read; they're relatively short in duration, which is good and bad depending on your personality type. But Present Moment Focus by Brian Cain, it gave me the ability to hone in a little bit more on the importance of focus and having the right amount of focus with the right level of intensity at the right time. So this book, in conjunction with some other studies and some other endeavors that I've dove into, helped me with focusing on the most important thing that's in front of me right now, rather than being distracted with multiple things that definitely need your attention, but maybe in the moment, right here, right now, the most important thing is what's in front of us. So that's a good book, Present Moment Focus by Brian Cain. Another one of my favorite books, I've read this a couple of times, is called Legacy by James Kerr. Legacy is really about the culture and the system of consistent winning that the New Zealand All Blacks Rugby Club put together. And it's a really cool book on, culture, togetherness, tribalism, ownership of responsibilities, actions. It's a great book. I've read it a couple of times. And the thing I really like about that book is it's relatable, because although the platform and the context is rugby, even if you're not a rugby fan, there's a lot of information in this book that you can apply to everyday life, no matter what it is that you're doing as a profession or as a hobby. So it's called Legacy by James Kerr. It's a really cool book, breaks down a little bit of history with the All Blacks. What I really like about it is how it talks about the culture, how it's developed at an early stage, and whether you're brand new to the club, you've got 10 minutes on the team, or you're part of the executive decision-making leadership, everyone is involved with every decision that gets made. So, they take a lot of pride in losing together. They take a lot of pride in, what I mean by losing together is learning together. So when the team suffers defeat, they sit together, they try to figure out what happened, and how do they fix it for the next time so it doesn't happen again. And then they really celebrate their victories together. So what's cool about it is, from my perspective, in my opinion, is the culture of togetherness. I really like that book. So it's called Legacy by James Kerr. And the last one that I'll recommend for today's iteration is it's called Brain Warrior's Way. Brain Warrior's Way by Daniel Amen. So Daniel Amen and a crew of his colleagues wrote a book on it. It's called Brain Warrior's Way, and it's all about the effects, the cognitive effects that our nutritional choices have on our, decision-making abilities and, sustained performance. So being able to perform optimally at a suggested longevity of sustainment and consistency has a lot to do with the nutrition that we choose to put into our bodies. And I really like this book, Brain Warrior's Way. Talks about the effects of food choices and how to avoid some of the things that just don't have a positive effect on our bodies. Yeah, it may temporarily be enjoyable while we're consuming it, but the long-term negative effects are just really, and he puts it in such a simple way that it's just not worth it. So it's interesting. It's very informative, and there's a lot of takeaways on food choices, what to avoid and what to implement on a consistent basis so we can perform optimally. So that one's Brain Warrior's Way by Daniel Amen. And so these are a few books that I would recommend for you. So this was Dan out of Vancouver, BC, that asked this question. Some of the books that I've read, and some of these I really enjoyed them, and like I've talked about, I've revisited them on several occasions. So I'll add a few more resources for your repertoire in the future, but these are some of the ones that I've tackled in the past. All right, guys. So a bit of a shorter one today, but I want to get something off the ground early in this first week of 2023. As always, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the feedback. I will endeavor to be more consistent with these videos, whether or not Sam is by my side or if she's busy. I'll still put something out for for the time being, even if it's by myself. So keep the questions coming. The feedback is always great, and know that we all have the ability to help lift somebody, help inspire somebody, provide a level of leadership, coaching, or mentorship. And everybody, myself included, the folks that do really well in life and do really well in their profession or do really well in their sport. If you look at the common denominators, everybody has got a coach, and all those folks that are doing really well and doing good things in whatever their domain is, they all have a coach. So reach out to somebody, extend a hand, and your mentors and your coaches, they can change and they can ebb and flow with your life and your life's challenges. So surround yourself with good people. Stay positive. It's really quick to highlight the negative. Do what we can to be the change that we want to be. That's what we're after here. So as always, keep fit, train hard, take care of yourself, take care of your neighbor, and always stay in the fight.